They cut her dress in front of God and everybody, and not a single soul moved to stop them. High noon in Bitterroot, July heat baking the platform where they made Anna Coulter stand. Mayor Oswin Tate read the debt notice like scripture, loud, slow, righteous. Pastor Grimsby nodded from the church steps. Proverbs says the debtor is slave to the lender. Two women came forward with scissors. Blue calico fell in strips at her feet. Anna's arms crossed over her bare chest, knuckles white, holding her own ribs together. The crowd watched, some jeering, most silent, all complicit. The church bell rang. Silas Kern walked through the dust, took off his brown wool coat in 100-degree heat, draped it over her shoulders without a word, led her away. The crowd parted. No one followed. Dust swallowed them both, and the torn fabric stayed there in the dirt until the wind took it. She wouldn't talk, wouldn't eat, wouldn't look at him, just sat in the wagon like something already dead. 8 miles to his ranch, every one of them silent. The coat swallowed her, 3 sizes too big, wool, in July heat, but she pulled it tighter whenever the wagon hit a rut. Silas checked twice, still breathing, still there. Both times she stared past him at nothing. The land opened up flat and endless, sagebrush and dust stretching to rimrock canyons. His place sat at the base of the eastern range. Small cabin, weathered barn, corrals holding 12 horses and maybe 80 head of cattle. Used to be 200. Drought was killing everything slow. He pulled the wagon up to the house and set the brake. Waited. She didn't move. "Ma'am?" Nothing. He climbed down, walked around. Close enough to see her hands still gripping the coat, knuckles bone white. Far enough she could breathe. Barn or house? Her eyes shifted to the barn. Didn't look at him, just pointed with her chin. He nodded. Expected that. He lifted her down. She went rigid, pulled away the second her feet touched ground, and she walked to the barn on her own. He followed 10 paces back. Inside, she found the darkest corner behind the stalls and sank down into hay. Still wearing the coat, still not looking at anything. Silas stood in the doorway, backlit by afternoon sun. "I'll bring water, food, whatever you need." No answer. He backed out slow, like approaching a spooked horse. He brought a blanket, tin cup of water, half a loaf of bread, set them down 6 feet from where she sat. She watched his hands the whole time, not his face, just his hands, tracking every movement. "I'll be in the house if you need anything." Still nothing. He left the barn door open a crack. Enough light to see by, enough space to run if she wanted. Night came hard and fast the way it does in high desert. Silas sat on the porch with coffee, facing east, scanning the horizon out of habit, looking for nothing. Been doing it 8 years now. Wake up, check the horizon, work, check again, sleep, repeat until dead. Through the barn wall, he heard her crying, soft at first, then harder, then the kind of crying that sounds like drowning. His hand went to the porch rail, half standing, stopped. She didn't need him in there. Needed space to break where no one could see. He knew that feeling, so he sat, drank coffee that went cold, listened, stayed. By the time the moon cleared the ridge, the crying had stopped. He didn't go check, just sat there awake, keeping watch over silence. Dawn came pale and cool. He found the cup and plate by the barn door, set careful on a flat stone. The blanket was folded. She'd drunk the water, eaten half the bread. Movement in the barn window caught his eye. She was awake, watching him from the gap between boards. Their eyes met for half a second. She looked away first. He picked up the empty cup. "Coffee's on if you want it." Turned and walked back to the house before she could answer. Day 2 started with fence work. Posts rotting out on the North 40, wire sagging. He worked through morning, came back for lunch around noon. She was gone. The barn door stood open. Empty corner where she'd slept. Blanket still folded, but no sign of her. His chest went tight. Checked the house, nothing. Corrals, nothing. Started toward the road, scanning sagebrush for any movement, already thinking, town came for her. Should have heard horses, should have been watching. Found her at the creek. What was left of it anyway? Creek bed down to mud and a trickle you could step over. She was kneeling there in the brown wool coat, scrubbing it against rocks, working soap into the fabric. The coat he'd given her yesterday. The coat that saved her. She looked up when his shadow crossed the water. Froze. "Didn't mean to," she started. First words she'd spoken. Voice rough from crying, but educated. Gentle, from some other life. "It's fine." He stayed where he was, 10 feet back. She looked at the coat in her hands, at him, at the coat again. "It was dirty." "I know. It was yours." "Still is. You just borrowed it." Wrong thing to say. Her face closed up. She went back to scrubbing. He watched her work the fabric, careful around the cuffs where the wear showed. After a minute, "You eat today?" "No." "Come on then." She wrung out the coat, hung it over the fence wire to dry in the sun, followed him back to the cabin, keeping that 10-foot distance. He didn't push. Porch had 2 chairs. He sat in one. She stood. He brought out bread, dried beef, jar of pickles, set them on the boards between the chairs, poured coffee into 2 tin cups, took one, left the other. She stared at the food like she'd forgotten what it was for. Eat or don't, he said. But if you're staying, you're eating. I can't pay you. Didn't ask you to. Long silence. She picked up the bread, tore off a small piece, ate it, standing up, back straight, eyes on the horizon instead of him. They stayed like that, him sitting, her standing, until both cups were empty and most of the food was gone. First time she'd been out of the barn in daylight since town. First time she'd eaten with another person, watching. Small things, still things. The horizon shimmered with heat. Then something moved through it. A rider, walking his horse easy, coming from the direction of the trading post. Anna saw him first, went still. Someone's coming. Silas squinted into the glare, recognized the white braid down the man's back before he could make out the face. It's all right. That's Running Bear. Who? Friend. She didn't relax, moved toward the door. He won't hurt you. Silas stood. He's Shoshone, runs the trading post out on the reservation boundary. Known him 15 years. Saved my life once. She looked at Silas, really looked at him for the first time, measuring, trying to figure out if this man who'd covered her with his coat would lie about safety. I'll go inside, she said finally. You don't have to. I will anyway. She slipped through the door, left it open a crack. Watching from the gap, the way she'd watched from the barn window, Running Bear rode up slow, dismounted easy, 70 if he was a day, white hair in one long braid, one eye clouded over, moved like he had all the time in the world, and no reason to hurry through any of it. Silas, Joseph. They stood there, 2 men who didn't need words taking up space between them. Running Bear glanced at the barn, at the coat drying on the fence, at the door, cracked open with half a face watching from darkness. Put it all together without being told. Town's talking, he said finally. Let them. Oswin came by the post yesterday, asked if I'd seen you. What did you tell him? That white man's business is white man's business. Running Bear pulled a cloth sack from his saddle. Brought coffee. Figured you'd need it. Silas took the bag. Obliged. She all right? Working on it. Running Bear nodded. Studied the eastern sky. Storm coming, 3 days, maybe 4. Dust or rain? Both. He looked back at Silas. You sure about this? About what? Bringing the town's trouble home. Silas glanced at the door, Anna's eye still visible in the gap. Wasn't trouble, was a person. Running Bear almost smiled. Good answer. He swung back up on his horse. You need anything? You know where I am. I do. That goes for her too. Raised his voice slightly, speaking toward the cabin. You hear me in there? Trading post's open. You need supplies, medicine, a place to sit where no one asks questions. You come. Silence from the cabin. Then, so quiet Silas almost missed it. Thank you. Running Bear touched 2 fingers to his chest, nodded once, and rode back the way he came. Silas stood on the porch until the dust settled. When he turned around, Anna was standing in the doorway. Not hiding anymore. Not quite coming out, but not hiding. He meant that, Silas said. About the trading post. I know. She looked at the horizon where Running Bear had disappeared. He sees people. Yeah. You do too. Silas didn't know what to say to that, so he said nothing. Just picked up the empty cups and went inside. Behind him, after a long moment, she followed. Running Bear said the storm would hold off 3 more days. Silas didn't tell him about the other storm, already inside his house. Day 3 started with Anna still in the barn, but closer. She'd moved from the back corner to a spot near the door where morning light came through. Small thing. Still a thing. Silas was mending harness on the porch when she appeared in the doorway, backlit by sun, one hand holding the doorframe like she might need to run. Can I help? First time she'd offered anything. He looked up from the leather, all in one hand, studied her. She was wearing a dress. Someone from town must have left on the porch overnight. Guilt offering, probably. Too cowardly to knock. Plain brown cotton, too big in the shoulders, hem dragging dirt, but clean, whole, not cut to pieces. You know leather work? My father was a saddle maker, before, that word carrying a whole life in 4 letters. Silas held out the harness. Stitching's come loose here, needs rethreading. She crossed the porch, still careful, still measuring distance, and took it. Sat in the empty chair, the one that had been empty 8 years, Sarah's chair. His hand stopped moving, just for a second, but she saw it. Should I sit somewhere else? The question hung there between them, full of all the things neither of them knew how to say. No. His voice came out rougher than he meant. No, that's fine. She nodded. Didn't ask why it mattered. just picked up the awl and started working the leather with hands that knew exactly what they were doing. Smooth, practiced movements. Her father had taught her well. They worked in silence, comfortable silence almost. The kind where you can hear the other person breathing and it doesn't feel like an intrusion. Leather creaking, all punching through, wind moving through sagebrush. After maybe 20 minutes, she said, "You've done this before." "Ranch work. You learn or you don't eat." No, I mean," she paused, fingers still moving. "Helped someone broken." He set down his work. "What makes you think that?" "You know how much space to leave, how not to ask questions, how to," she searched for words, "how to let someone be shattered without trying to glue them back together wrong." Silas looked at his hands, scarred knuckles, rope burns healed over, a lifetime of hard use. Had a wife, Sarah. She died 8 years back, childbirth. "I'm sorry." "Me too." The silence that followed wasn't comfortable anymore, but it was honest. "I wasn't here," he said, surprising himself. "When it happened, was 2 days south, selling cattle. Came home to—" He stopped, shook his head. "Doesn't matter now." "It does." He looked at her. She was watching him with those dark eyes that had seen too much, too fast, understanding written all over her face. "You couldn't save her," Anna said quietly. "So you're trying to save me instead?" Direct hit. He flinched. "That about right?" "Maybe." He picked his work back up, hands needing something to do. "Maybe I just couldn't watch anymore." "Watch what?" "People being cruel because the law says they can." She absorbed that. Went back to stitching after a while. "What if I don't want to be saved?" "Then you don't. But you're still eating, still sleeping somewhere dry, still breathing. That's enough for now." She almost smiled. Almost. They worked through the heat of the day. Anna finished the harness, started on a bridle that needed new buckles. Silas fixed fence posts that had been waiting 3 months. Every hour or so, one of them would bring water to the porch. They'd drink, rest, go back to work. Finding a rhythm. Afternoon, she asked if she could tend the garden. "Ain't much of a garden." I noticed. First hint of humor in her voice. Dry, buried. "But there. Do what you want with it," he said. She spent 2 hours pulling weeds, straightening what was left of the tomato plants, coaxing water from the nearly dry irrigation ditch. Worked like someone who'd grown food before. Worked like someone who needed her hands busy so her mind could rest. He watched from the corral, not staring, just aware of where she was, making sure she was still there. When the sun dropped behind the western ridge, she came back to the porch. Dirt under her fingernails, sweat staining the too big dress, hair falling out of the knot she'd tied it in. Real, human, alive. "Found strawberries," she said. "Buried under all that bindweed, still producing. Sarah planted those." Anna's face shifted. "I can leave them." "No." He stood. "No. She'd be glad someone's looking after them." The truth of that sat between them. Sarah would have liked Anna. Would have brought her inside day one, fed her, talked her through the worst of it. Sarah had always been better at people than he was. Better at most things, if he was honest. "Come on," he said. "I'll make dinner." "You cook?" "I eat, don't I?" That doesn't answer the question. There, a real smile. Small, gone fast, but real. Dinner was beans, cornbread, coffee. Nothing fancy. But she ate sitting down this time, at the table inside, in Sarah's chair, for the second time that day. The cabin was small, one main room with kitchen, fireplace, table. 2 doors off the back, one to his bedroom, one closed and locked. She'd noticed that door. Hadn't asked. He was grateful. "This is good," she said, meaning the food. "It's beans. It's hot. It's not stale bread in a barn. That makes it good." Fair point. They ate in silence for a while. Comfortable again. The kind of quiet that happens when 2 people are tired from honest work and don't need words taking up space. Anna finished first, set down her fork. "Can I ask you something?" "Can't stop you." Why haven't you asked me what happened? Why I owed the debt? Why they—" She couldn't say it. "Why they did what they did." Silas pushed cornbread around his plate. "Figure you'll tell me if you want to." "Don't if you don't." "Most people would have asked already." I'm not most people." She studied him across the table, reading something in his face he didn't know was written there. "No, you're not." More silence. Then, "My husband forged my name," she said, all at once, like pulling a splinter. "Took a loan from Oswin's bank using papers that looked real enough. $500. Disappeared 6 months ago, hasn't been seen since." Silas set down his fork, listened. "They came for payment. I told them I didn't sign anything, didn't know about any loan. Showed them my signature, different from the papers, didn't matter. Oswin said I was married to James. Lived in the house, the money improved. benefited from the funds, said debt transfers. That's not law. It is if you're the judge and the bank and the mayor all at once. Her voice stayed flat, factual, like she was reading someone else's story. Sold my house, my furniture, my books. Still wasn't enough, so they... She stopped, breathed, started again. They said I needed to learn, said other women needed to see what happens when you don't pay your debts, made an example. Silas's hands curled into fists under the table. That ain't law. That's cruelty wearing a judge's robe. Does it matter which it is? Yeah, it does. She looked at him. Why? Because law can be changed. Cruelty just has to be stopped. Something shifted in her face, like she'd been waiting years for someone to say that out loud. I was a teacher, she said quietly. Had 32 students. Taught them to read, write, do sums. Loved every one of them. Her voice cracked. Their mothers watched while they cut my dress. Women whose children I taught. They watched and didn't say a word. Silas reached across the table, stopped himself halfway, pulled his hand back. I'm sorry, he said. Inadequate words, but all he had. So am I. Night settled in heavy. Anna helped wash dishes, another small, domestic act, another piece of normal she was rebuilding. He dried. They moved around each other in the small kitchen like they'd been doing this for years instead of days. She was putting away the last plate when she noticed the locked door. What's in there? His whole body went rigid. Nothing. Doesn't look like nothing. It was going to be a nursery. For the baby. After Sarah died, I locked it. Hasn't been open since. Anna turned to face him. 8 years? Yeah. What's inside? Crib I built, blanket she knitted, some clothes. He set down the dish towel. Things I couldn't look at and couldn't throw away. She nodded. Didn't push, just said, when you're ready. What if I'm never ready? Then you're not, but... She paused. Keeping it locked doesn't make her less dead, just makes you less alive. Truth delivered plain and simple, no judgment, just fact. Silas looked at that door, thought about what was behind it. I'll think about it. That's enough. They stood there in the kitchen, him looking at a locked door, her looking at him, both carrying rooms inside themselves they couldn't open. I should sleep, she said finally. There's a bedroom, the one on the left. You don't have to stay in the barn anymore. She hesitated, old fear rising. Don't know if I can. Be in a room with a door that closes. Leave it open. You won't? I won't, he said firmly. You have my word. She searched his face, found whatever she was looking for, nodded. Thank you, for all of it. Don't need thanks. I know. That's why I'm giving it. She moved toward the bedroom, paused at the doorway. Silas? Yeah? You're a good man, even if you don't believe it yet. Before he could answer, she closed the door, not all the way. Left it cracked 3 inches, enough light to see by, enough space to run if she needed to. Silas sat on the porch with cold coffee, checking the eastern horizon. Old habit, empty ritual. Except tonight something was different. Tonight there was someone sleeping under his roof. Someone who wasn't Sarah, but wasn't trying to be. Someone who'd sat in Sarah's chair and worked Sarah's garden, and somehow it felt less like betrayal and more like continuation. He didn't know what to do with that feeling. In the distance, heat lightning flickered. Storm coming, like Running Bear said. 3 days, maybe less. From down the road, so faint he almost missed it, hoofbeats. Single rider, moving slow, stopping at the property line, watching. Silas's hand went to the rifle he kept by the door, waited. After a long minute, the rider turned around. Headed back toward town, they were checking. Making sure she was still here. The storm wasn't just in the weather. She asked him why he'd done it, stepped forward that day. He didn't have an answer she'd believe. Week 2 started with routines they'd fallen into without planning. Silas up before dawn, coffee on the stove, checking the horizon. Anna emerging from her room, door still cracked, always cracked, to pour her own cup. Few words. Didn't need them. Mornings were for work, him on fence line, or with cattle. Her in the garden, or mending things around the cabin that had gone 8 years without a woman's attention. Curtains washed, floors swept, small repairs to chairs, shelves, the places where a house starts forgetting it's supposed to be a home. He didn't ask her to do any of it. She just did. Evenings were for porch sitting, coffee going cold in their cups, watching the land change colors as sun dropped behind the rim. Still not talking much, but the silence had shifted from careful to comfortable, from strangers sharing space to something else, something neither of them had names for yet. On the 8th day, she brought out the coat. Silas was replacing boards on the porch rail, wood rotted through from years of weather and neglect, when she appeared in the doorway holding brown wool folded careful in her arms. I finished it, she said. He set down the hammer, looked at what she was holding, the coat, his coat. The one he'd draped over her shoulders while scissors were still cutting. She'd taken it down from where it hung by the door that morning. He'd noticed it missing but hadn't asked. Now she unfolded it, held it up, clean, mended. The frayed cuff where the fabric had been pulling apart, stitched tight with thread that matched so close, you'd have to look hard to see the repair. Seams reinforced, collar straightened, and there, where a button had been missing for 3 years, a new button, blue calico. The same fabric that had been cut from her dress and left in the town square dust. Silas stared at that button, couldn't look away. She'd kept a piece. One small scrap of the dress they'd destroyed, turned it into something useful, something that would hold things together instead of falling apart. I know it's not exactly, she started. It's perfect. She looked up at him, uncertain. You're sure? I can find a brown button if... No. He reached out, stopped, just before touching the fabric. No, it's right. His voice came out rougher than he meant, because he understood what she'd done. Taken the worst thing that had happened to her and made it part of what had saved her, reclaimed it, transformed it. She hung the coat back on its hook by the door, smoothed it once. There, good as new. Not new, better than new. New things didn't have history, didn't have meaning woven into every thread. Thank you, he said. You gave it to me first. To cover you. You did more than that. She turned to face him fully. You stepped forward when no one else would, in front of the whole town, knowing what it would cost. Didn't think about cost. Exactly. She sat down on the porch step, not in a chair this time, closer to the ground, more solid. That's what makes it matter. He sat down beside her, left 2 feet between them, still learning the right distance. They watched the horizon for a while, heat shimmer making the far ridge look like it was breathing. Can I ask you something? Her voice was quiet, careful. Can't stop you. Why'd you do it? That day? There it was. The question he'd known was coming since the moment he'd taken off that coat in 100-degree heat. He didn't answer right away. Picked up a wood shaving from the porch boards, turned it over in his fingers. Couldn't watch anymore, he said finally. But you'd watched before. She wasn't accusing, just stating fact. We all knew, Mary Henson 2 years back, they made her stand in front of the church for 3 hours. Sign around her neck listing her sins. Adultery, they said, even though her husband beat her so bad she couldn't see out of one eye, and the man who helped her leave was just kind. Direct hit. He flinched. You didn't help her, Anna continued. No one did. So why me? Silas set down the wood shaving, looked at his hands, rope-scarred knuckles, dirt under the nails, hands that had built a crib he'd never used, and a fence that kept nothing in and nothing out. Don't know, he said, honest, raw. Woke up that morning and something felt wrong, like I was running out of time, or chances, or... He stopped, started again. You ever feel like you're disappearing, not dying, just fading, becoming less real every day until one morning you'll wake up and there won't be anything left? She was quiet for a long moment. Then, that morning I looked in the mirror, and I couldn't remember the last time I'd done something that mattered. The last time I'd been human, not just going through motions, not just working and eating and sleeping and waiting to die. So you saved me to save yourself. Brutal. True. Maybe. He finally looked at her. Is that so wrong? I don't know. She pulled her knees up, wrapped her arms around them. Old defensive posture, but her voice stayed steady. Depends. On what? On whether you're still here because you need to be saved, or because I need someone who will stay. Silence. The kind that cracks foundations. What if it's both? He asked. She looked at him, really looked, reading something in his face he wasn't sure he wanted her to see. Then I guess we're saving each other, she said. The truth of that sat between them like a third person on the porch. Uncomfortable, necessary. I had a wife, he said, words coming out before he could stop them. Sarah, she died 8 years ago. Childbirth. The baby, too. You told me. I didn't tell you I wasn't there. Anna went still. I was 2 days south, selling cattle because we needed the money more than we needed. He couldn't finish that sentence. Started another. Neighbor came for me, rode hard. By the time I got home, it had been 3 days. They'd already buried them both. So I chose money over being there, chose cattle over my wife. And she died alone calling for me, and his voice broke. I was haggling over price per head like any of it mattered. Anna reached out, stopped herself, let her hand fall. You didn't know, she said quietly. Doesn't change what happened. No, but it changes what it means. He looked at her. How? You didn't choose cattle over her. You chose to provide for your family. There's a difference. Not to her, there wasn't. Maybe not in that moment, but she paused, choosing words carefully. Silas, you can't be saved from something that wasn't your fault. You weren't cruel. You weren't careless. You were just human. And sometimes humans make choices that seem right and end up being wrong, and there's nothing you can do to change it after. I locked her nursery, he said. Haven't opened it in 8 years. Can't throw anything away. Can't look at it either. Just locked it and left it. That's grief. That's cowardice. It's both, she said it plainly. And it's all right. Something in his chest loosened. Just a little. Just enough to breathe. My husband used to lock doors too, Anna said after a long silence. Not nurseries, just me, when he was angry. When I'd said something he didn't like, or looked at him wrong, or existed in a way that inconvenienced him. Silas turned to look at her. She was staring at the horizon, face unreadable. He'd lock me in the bedroom, sometimes for hours, once for 2 days, left a bucket for... She stopped, breathed. Doesn't matter. Point is, I know what it's like to lock things away, to seal off the parts that hurt so you don't have to look at them. That's different. Is it? She finally looked at him. You locked a door because you couldn't face what was behind it. I locked myself away after he left because I couldn't face what was inside me. We're both just, trying not to break. You didn't break. Neither did you. I disappeared. No. She shook her head. You waited. There's the difference. And then, when you couldn't wait anymore, when you were about to vanish completely, you stepped forward. You chose to be seen. She paused. That's braver than you think. He didn't know what to say to that. So he just sat there, letting her words settle like dust after wind. After a while, she said, Want to know something strange? What? I hated you that first day. In the wagon. That surprised him. Why? Because you made me visible again. I'd gotten so good at disappearing, at being nothing, at not mattering. And you, she made a frustrated sound. You put that coat on me, and suddenly I was a person again. Someone worth covering, someone worth protecting. And I didn't want to be. Being nothing hurt less. But you were always a person. Not to them, not after James left. I became evidence, proof of debt, a lesson to teach other women. Her voice stayed flat, matter of fact. It's easier to be a thing. Things don't feel. But you're not a thing. I know that now. She looked at him. You reminded me. The weight of that sat between them. What it cost her to say, what it cost him to hear. They fell back into silence. But it was different now, lighter. Like they'd both set down something heavy and were learning to walk without it. That evening they cooked together, not just him cooking while she watched. Both of them moving around the small kitchen, passing plates and knives and words. She told him about her father's saddle shop in Kansas, the smell of leather and oil, how her mother died when she was 12, and she'd learned to cook from a neighbor woman who spoke more German than English. He told her about learning to ride before he could walk. About his own father, hard man, harder hands, but fair, who died when Silas was 19 and left him this land in a note that just said, make it mean something. Have you? Anna asked. Made it mean something? He looked around the cabin, at the locked door, at the garden outside that was coming back to life, at her, standing at the stove, stirring beans like she'd always been there. Working on it, he said. She smiled, real smile, the second one he'd seen from her. They were cleaning up when hoofbeats sounded outside. Both of them froze. Silas grabbed the rifle by the door. Anna went pale. It's all right, he said, though he didn't know if it was. The rider called out before getting close. Silas, it's Joseph. Running Bear. Silas set down the rifle, opened the door. The old man was dismounting, moving faster than usual, not running, but not his normal patient pace either. What's wrong? Town's moving. Running Bear glanced at Anna in the doorway, nodded to her. She nodded back. Oswin's been to the territorial capital, brought back a circuit judge. Claims you're harboring a debtor, interfering with legal collection. She doesn't owe anything. Papers were forged. Doesn't matter to them. They want an example made. Want to show what happens when someone defies the law. He pulled a paper from his coat. Official seal, court summons. 10 days, you and her. Have to appear, or they'll come for you. Silas took the paper, read it. Every word felt like the nail being driven. Anna stepped out onto the porch. I'll go. No. Silas didn't even think about it. No, you won't. Silas, they'll take your land, your cattle. Everything you have. I don't care. I do. Her voice was steady, determined. I won't let you lose everything because of me. You're not understanding. He looked at her. I already lost everything. 8 years ago. Been walking around empty ever since. You think they can take something I don't have? That's not... You made me remember what it's like to not be empty. The words came out raw, honest. First time in 8 years I've woken up with a reason to. They can have the land, have the cattle, have every damn thing I own, but they're not having you. Silence. Anna staring at him. Running Bear watching them both with his one good eye. The hearing's in 10 days, Running Bear said quietly. Judge is the same one who approved Mary Henson's punishment. Town council's pushing for public restitution again. Oswin wants blood. Let him want, Silas said. Running Bear nodded slowly. You know I'll help however I can. I know. Both of you. And he looked at Anna. You need somewhere to go, somewhere to hide. I'm not hiding anymore, she said. I'm done hiding. Running Bear almost smiled. Good. World needs more people who stop hiding. He swung back onto his horse. 10 days, use them well. He rode off into twilight. Anna and Silas stood on the porch, not looking at each other, both looking at the eastern horizon where town sat 8 miles away, preparing its next cruelty. I should leave, Anna said. Tonight. They won't come after you if I'm gone. They will anyway. I already defied them, already made them look weak. Then I'll turn myself in. Say you forced me to stay. That'll clear you. Stop. He turned to face her. Stop trying to protect me by destroying yourself. That's what you did for me. That was different. How? Because... He stopped, struggled, because I don't know how to explain it, and I don't have the right words. But I know if you leave, I go back to disappearing, and I can't do that again. Not now, not after what? After remembering what it feels like to be alive. The words hung between them. Too honest, too raw, too late to take back. Anna's eyes were bright, not quite crying, close. Silas Kern, she said quietly. You might be the stubbornest man I've ever met. Probably. And the kindest. He didn't know what to say to that, so he just stood there while she stepped closer, not touching, but closer than she'd been since that first day in the wagon. 10 days, she said. Yeah. What do we do with them? He looked at the cabin, the garden, the horizon they checked together every morning now, without even thinking about it. Live them, he said. Whatever comes after, we live these 10 days like they're all we've got. She nodded. All right. They went inside together. Both of them checked the lock on the door, first time she'd wanted it locked since arriving. External threat doing what internal fear couldn't. That night, she left her bedroom door open wider than usual. 6 inches instead of 3. Still, not all the way, but wider. Progress. Trust. Something fragile growing in the space between walls. Silas sat in the dark of his own room, listening to her breathe and sleep, knowing in 10 days they'd face the same people who'd cut her dress, and laughed. Knowing Law would probably side with Law, not with what was right. But for now, for these 10 days, they had this, a cabin with 2 people in it, coffee in the morning, work in the afternoon, quiet in the evening, small things, everything. Outside, heat lightning flickered. Storm still coming, just like Running Bear said. But storms passed, they always did. The question was what remained after. The letter came on a Tuesday. By Wednesday, she was gone. Day 9 of 10, 1 day left before the hearing. Anna was in the garden at first light, pulling weeds that didn't need pulling, when she heard the horse, single rider, coming fast, too fast for Running Bear, too early for anything good. Deputy Wallace, young, nervous, doing Oswin's work because he needed the job more than he needed a conscience. He stopped at the property line, didn't dismount, just held out a folded paper. Mr. Kern, got an amended summons from Judge Whitlock. Silas took it, read it standing there in the yard. Anna watched his face change. What is it? She asked. He didn't answer, just kept reading. Mr. Kern? The deputy shifted in his saddle. Judge wants you to know it's standard procedure. When someone harbors, get off my land. The deputy flinched. Sir, I'm just, The young man rode off without another word. Anna climbed out of the garden, walked over. What does it say? Silas handed her the paper. She read, face going pale. Hereby notifies Silas Kern that continued harbor of indebted party Anna Coulter will result in seizure of property and livestock to satisfy outstanding debt, now transferred to harboring party as co-signatory by virtue of provision of shelter. Legal language. But the meaning was clear. They were making him responsible for her debt. $500 he didn't have. They'd take everything. I have to leave. Her voice came out flat, decided. No. Silas, they'll take your ranch, your cattle. 8 years, you've kept this place going, and they'll... I said no. You don't get to decide that. First time she'd raised her voice. This is my debt, my problem. I won't let you... Won't let me what? Help you? He was angry now, too. That's what this is, Anna. Helping. That's what people do. People lose everything helping me. She was shaking. James lost himself. Town lost its conscience. And now you'll lose the only thing you have left because you were too stubborn to... To what? Watch you. Walk back into their hands. Let them make another example? Better me than you. Not to me it isn't. Silence. Both breathing hard. 8 days of careful peace cracking down the middle. I don't understand you, Anna said. Quieter now. Exhausted. Why would you give up everything for someone you barely know? Because I already lost everything once. His voice broke. And I survived it. Barely, but I did. You think losing a ranch I don't care about is worse than losing... He stopped. Couldn't finish. Then losing what? The first thing I've cared about in 8 years. The words hit like a physical blow. Anna went very still. No, she said. No, you don't get to do that. Do what? Make me responsible for your healing. Make me your reason. I can't be that, Silas. I can't be someone's salvation. I'm barely keeping myself together. I'm not asking you to. You are. I'm tears now. Angry tears. Scared tears. You're asking me to stay so you don't disappear again. But what about me? What about what I need? What do you need? To not be debt. She was shouting now. To not be something someone pays for or protects or sacrifices for. To just be. Nothing. No one. Free. That night, Silas sat on the porch until the moon rose. When he finally went inside, Anna's door was closed. All the way. First time since she'd moved in. He knocked. Anna, don't. Please. Long silence. Then the door opened. She'd been packing. Her few things rolled in a blanket. The brown wool coat folded on top. I'm leaving at dawn, she said. I'll tell them you forced me to stay. That'll clear you. That's a lie. So? Law's already a lie? What's one more? She pushed past him, walked to the door, stopped, turned back. I'm taking the coat. It's yours. No. She picked it up, held it against her chest. It was yours. You gave it to protect me. So let me protect you back. He finally understood. She was going to turn herself in wearing his coat. Evidence he'd harbored her, taking the blame onto herself. Anna, don't... But she was already out the door. Walking into darkness, still wearing the coat despite the heat, he caught up to her 3 miles down the road, dawn just breaking. She was crying and walking and wouldn't stop for anything. You can't walk 8 miles in that, he said. It's mine now. You gave it to me. I gave it to protect you. Then let me protect you back. She turned on him. You said you lost everything 8 years ago. Fine. But I lost everything 6 months ago, and I'm still losing it every single day, and I will not add your ranch to the list of things I destroyed just by existing. They stood in the road, dust rising around them, both crying now. I lost someone, he said, long time back. Wasn't there when it mattered. This time I am. You don't get to take that from me, and you don't get to lose everything because of me. Standoff. The coat between them like a contested territory, his protection, her weapon, symbol of everything they couldn't say. Finally, she sagged. I can't watch you lose your home, Silas. Then don't watch, just stay. Why? Because leaving doesn't save me, it just proves them right. Proves that caring about someone always ends in loss. He wiped his face. I can survive losing the ranch. I can't survive you choosing them over me. She looked at him, really looked, seeing what he was offering. What it cost. I'll come back, she said finally. But things are different now. Well, how? You can't save me, Silas. And I can't save you. We're just two people who met at the worst possible time, trying not to drown. That's enough. Is it? He didn't have an answer. They walked back as the sun rose, her still wearing the coat, him walking 3 feet behind instead of beside. The warmth they'd built over 8 days, gone. In its place, something colder, more honest, more scared. She slept in the barn that night. The walls were back up. Running Bear found him at Sarah's grave, talking to dirt and ghosts. Day 10, morning of the hearing. Anna had spent the night in the barn. Silas hadn't slept at all. At dawn, he'd walked to the cemetery. One cottonwood tree standing alone, white headstone underneath. Sarah Kern, beloved wife, 1851 to 1877. And child, unnamed. He sat down in the dirt, started talking. I know you'd want me to help her. You always saw people, really saw them. I just saw work, numbers, land. You'd be ashamed it took me 8 years to remember how. His voice cracked. But I'm scared. Losing you broke something. If I lose her too, if I let myself care, and she leaves or I fail her, I don't come back from that. You know I don't. Silence. Just wind through leaves. She's right, though. Anna. She said I'm making her responsible for saving me. And she's right. I thought if I could have protected her, it would, I don't know, prove I could have protected you. Second chance. But that's not fair to her, is it? He put his head in his hands. I don't know how to do this. How to care without making it about me. How to help without needing something back. You can't. Silas's head snapped up. Anna stood 10 feet away, arms wrapped around herself. How long had she been listening? You can't help without needing something back, she said. That's not how people work. We're all just using each other to stay alive. He stood. Anna, I'm not her. Her voice was hard, defensive. I know you know that. But I also know every time you look at me, you're seeing her. Seeing what you couldn't save. And I'm tired of being someone's redemption project. That's not what it is. She took a step closer. You think this is your second chance? It's not. I'm not a chance. I'm a person. And I'm tired of being someone's way to feel less guilty. Direct hit. He couldn't argue because she was right. I was using you, he admitted, voice raw. To feel human again. To feel like I mattered. You're right about all of it. She hadn't expected honesty. It stopped her. But here's what you're wrong about, he continued. I don't see her when I look at you. I see you. Someone who survived being destroyed in public. Someone strong enough to wash the coat that saved her and turn her shame into a button that holds things together. I see someone who's been teaching me how to be alive again without even knowing it. Anna's eyes were wet. Don't what? Don't make me matter that much. I can't carry that. You're not carrying it. I am. Silence. Both of them standing in a cemetery, surrounded by ghosts and choices. What if I leave anyway? She asked. After the hearing, what if I just go? Then you go, and you'll be okay? He thought about the locked nursery, the 8 years of empty horizons, the way coffee tasted before she'd poured herself a cup beside his. No, he said honestly, but I'll survive it. She studied his face. That's the first real thing you've said to me. I know. They walked back to the ranch together, still not touching, but not 3 feet apart anymore either. Back at the cabin, Silas stopped at the locked door. The nursery, 8 years sealed. Anna watched him pull the key from his pocket. He'd kept it there all this time, close, just in case. You don't have to, she said. I do. The lock clicked. Door swung open. Dust, thick and choking. Crib, in the corner, small, perfectly built, never used. Blue blanket draped over the rail, still soft somehow. Tiny clothes, folded on a shelf. Everything waiting for a child who never came home. Silas walked in, touched the crib, the blanket, sat down on the floor. Anna stood in the doorway, gave him space, but stayed. I built this in 6 weeks, he said. Worked every night after the cattle were in. Wanted it perfect. He stopped. She never even saw it finished. Went into labor early. Was gone before I got home. He picked up the blanket, pressed it to his face. Let himself cry. Really cry. 8 years of grief that had been locked away with the furniture. Anna crossed the room. Sat down beside him. Not touching, just close. You can't save me to replace her, she said quietly. I know. And I can't fill the hole she left. I know that too. So what are we doing? He lowered the blanket, looked at her. Learning to live with holes, I guess. Together. She reached out, took his hand. First time she'd initiated touch. I lied earlier, she said. When I said you make me responsible for your healing, that wasn't fair. You've never asked me for anything except to stay. And that's not the same as being dead. No. No. Dead is what people take from you. You're just asking me to be here. That's different. Is it enough? She squeezed his hand. I don't know yet, but I'm willing to find out. They sat there in the nursery, him holding a blanket for a child who never lived, her holding his hand while he grieved. Both of them broken, both of them trying. Outside, the sun climbed higher, hours until the hearing, until they'd face Oswin and the judge and the whole town that had watched and done nothing. But for now, they had this. A room finally opened, grief finally acknowledged. 2 people sitting in dust and truth. It wasn't salvation, but it was honest, and maybe that was enough. The day before court, the town went silent. Even the wind held its breath. They rode to Bitterroot in the wagon. Early morning, neither had slept. Anna wore the brown dress someone had left on the porch. Not the coat, not in this heat. Silas drove. Didn't check the horizon once. Just stared straight ahead at the road that led back to the place that had destroyed her. 8 miles of silence. She sat rigid beside him, hands folded in her lap, white knuckles. When they passed the 3-mile marker where he'd caught her trying to leave, She looked away. "You don't have to do this," he said. First words since they'd left the ranch. "Yes, I do." "Anna, if I run now, I run forever. I'm tired of running." He understood that, nodded, kept driving. Bitterroot's main street was empty, not Sunday morning empty, plague empty, like everyone had locked themselves inside and pulled the curtains. Only 3 horses tied outside the courthouse. Running Bear's paint, Deputy Wallace's bay, and one he didn't recognize, the circuit judge's mount. Silas helped Anna down from the wagon. She flinched when his hands touched her waist. Old fear, muscle memory, but didn't pull away. They walked toward the courthouse. Running Bear stood on the opposite side of the street, leaning against the trading post wall. Old, patient. Witness. He touched 2 fingers to his chest when Anna looked at him. She nodded back. Inside, the courtroom was dim and dusty. Judge Whitlock sat behind the bench. Territorial appointment, gray beard, eyes that had seen too much and cared too little. Oswin and Pastor Grimsby occupied the front row. Deputy Wallace stood by the door. That was it. No crowd, no town. Just the people who'd started this and the people who'd have to finish it. Anna walked to the defendant's table. Silas beside her. She was shaking. The judge looked at the papers. At Anna. At Silas. Sighed like this was already a waste of his time. "Mrs. Coulter, you're charged with debt avoidance and Mr. Kern with unlawful harbor. Tate has submitted documentation of the original loan." Oswin stood. "Your Honor, the debt is clear. $500. Unpaid. The law." "I've read the documents, Mr. Tate." The judge cut him off. "I've also reviewed territorial statute regarding debt collection and public punishment." Silence. "The signature on the loan papers doesn't match Mrs. Coulter's known signature. The notary who witnessed it died 6 months ago, conveniently, and the manner of collection—" He looked at Oswin with something close to disgust. "Public humiliation and destruction of property violates territorial law on cruel and unusual punishment." Oswin went pale. "Your Honor, precedent. The precedent is that we are not barbarians, Mr. Tate. The debt is void. Mrs. Coulter is discharged of all obligation." He looked at Silas. "Mr. Kern, you've committed no crime. Case dismissed." The gavel came down. 3 seconds of silence. Then Oswin was on his feet. "This is outrageous. The sanctity of debt is outweighed by the sanctity of human dignity." The judge gathered his papers. "We're done here." Outside, the sun was brutal. Anna stood on the courthouse steps, blinking like she'd forgotten what daylight looked like. "It's over," she said, not believing it. Silas looked down the empty street, at the closed doors, at the town that had judged her and now wouldn't even show its face. "No," he said quietly, "it's not." She looked at him. The judge said the law is on our side. That's not the same as over." And he was right. They could feel it in the air, the wrongness. They'd won legally, but morally, the town had already left the courtroom, already decided what they believed. Anna would always be the woman who'd been cut. Silas would always be the fool who'd helped her. Nothing had changed except some papers. Running Bear crossed the street, stood with them. "Town's hiding," he said. "Shame does that. Makes people small." "They should be ashamed," Anna said, voice hard. "They are. That's why they're hiding. Easier than facing what they did." Silas looked at the church. At Pastor Grimsby's window. Curtain moved. Someone watching. "This isn't finished," he said. "No," Running Bear agreed. "The law spoke. But the heart hasn't. Not yet." They rode back in silence. Different silence than before. Not dread. Something else. Harder. Like they'd both realized the same thing. Winning in court meant nothing if the people who'd hurt them never had to look them in the eye. At the ranch, Anna went inside. Silas stayed on the porch. Checked the horizon out of habit. Storm clouds building to the west. Finally, after weeks of drought and dust and waiting, Running Bear had said 3 days. He'd been right. Silas thought about Sarah, about the nursery he'd finally opened, about Anna, who'd survived being destroyed in public and still found the strength to sit in a courtroom with her destroyers, about the coat hanging by the door with its blue calico button, about how justice on paper felt like ash in his mouth. He'd protected her. The law had protected her. But protection wasn't the same as restoration. Wasn't the same as making the town see what they'd done. Inside, Anna was probably crying or sleeping or staring at walls. He wanted to go in. Wanted to say something that would make it better. But there was nothing to say. They'd won the battle. The war was still coming. He could feel it in the air, in the way the wind was changing, in the way his hands wanted to curl into fists. Tomorrow he'd figure out what came next. Tonight, he just sat, watching clouds build, waiting for the storm that had been promised all along. They won in court, but the real trial was waiting outside. Next morning, Anna came out of her room dressed in the brown dress, hair tied back, face set. "I'm going to town," she said. Silas looked up from his coffee. Why? Because they hid yesterday. Because they got to walk away from what they did without looking at me. She crossed her arms. I'm going to make them look. He studied her, saw something different in her spine. Straighter, harder. I'll go with you. You don't have to. I know. He stood. I'm going anyway. She almost smiled. Stubborn man. Learned from a stubborn woman. They rode into Bitterroot at noon. This time people were out. Saturday, market day. The town couldn't hide anymore. When the wagon rolled down Main Street, conversation stopped. People turned, stared. Silas pulled up in front of the church, set the brake. Anna climbed down, stood in the street. Same place they'd cut her dress 2 weeks ago. The crowd began to gather, slow, uncertain, like animals drawn to something they couldn't look away from. Oswin appeared on the bank steps. Pastor Grimsby at the church door. The women who'd held the scissors, the men who'd watched and done nothing. All of them, drawn out by shame or curiosity, or the simple fact that Anna Coulter was standing in their street and not running. Silas stood beside her, not in front, beside. Anna looked at the faces, at the people who'd known her, taught their children, sang in their choir, then watched her be destroyed. My name is Anna Coulter, she said, voice steady, carrying. I was a teacher, a wife, a neighbor to some of you. The crowd shifted, uncomfortable. Mary Henson, she pointed. I taught your daughters to read. Pastor Grimsby, I sang in your choir for 3 years. Mrs. Dale, I sat with your mother when she was dying. Each name, a small accusation. Each memory, a mirror held up. You cut my dress 2 weeks ago, made a spectacle, called it law. Her voice didn't shake. The judge said you were wrong, but I don't need a judge to tell me what you did. I was there. I felt it. Someone in the crowd started crying. One of the women who'd held the scissors. I forgive you, Anna said. Silence. Shocked silence. Not because you deserve it, because I deserve to stop carrying your shame. She looked at each face. I forgive you, but I won't forget, and neither will you. Pastor Grimsby stepped forward. The Bible says, feed the hungry, clothe the naked. Silas's voice cut across the square, loud, hard. First time most of them had heard him raise it. I seem to recall you stood there with scissors, preaching about debt while a woman bled dignity into dust. The pastor flinched. You want to talk scripture? Silas continued. How about whatsoever you do to the least of these? She was the least. You made her that. And every one of you watched. Running Bear stepped out from the trading post, stood with them. Silent witness. Moral weight. I couldn't watch anymore, Silas said, the line he'd said to Anna. Now said to everyone. Been watching cruelty dressed up as law for too long. Watching people hurt each other 'cause someone told them it was right. He looked at Anna, then back at the crowd. This woman survived what you did to her. Walked back into this town knowing you'd stare, knowing you'd judge. She came back because she's braver than all of you combined. Some people were leaving, some crying, some standing frozen. Mrs. Dale stepped forward, old woman, weathered. I'm sorry, barely a whisper. I'm so sorry. Then another voice. Me too, another. We were wrong, not everyone, not even half, but some. Breaking, Silas took off his coat, brown wool, heavy, too hot for the day. But this time he didn't drape it over her like she was something to hide. He held it out, offered it, Anna took it, put it on herself, stood tall in the street wearing it like armor, like a declaration. The blue calico button caught sunlight. Let's go home, she said. They walked back to the wagon together, not hurrying, not hiding, walking like people who had every right to the ground beneath their feet. Behind them, the church bell started ringing, not the harsh clang from 2 weeks ago, softer. Someone pulling it gentle. One person's small rebellion, small light. Running Bear walked with them to the wagon, helped Anna up. The land remembers, he said, every cruelty, every kindness. Today, kindness won. They rode out of Bitterroot. This time, some people waved. Small gestures, hands half raised, not quite brave enough to shout, but brave enough to move. Anna pulled the coat tighter, not from cold, from choice. We did it, she said. Yeah. What now? Silas looked at the road ahead, at the woman beside him, at the storm clouds finally breaking over the western ridge. Now we go home, he said. And we keep living. She smiled, real, full, the kind that reaches the eyes. Sounds good. They say mercy is for the weak, but it takes a strong man to stay. 2 months later, first cool morning of autumn, Anna was in the garden pulling the last tomatoes before frost. 3 ranch kids sat on the porch steps with slates and chalk, makeshift school she'd started in the barn, teaching again, her voice carrying through open windows. Silas worked fence line, stopped, listened. Smiled, without meaning to. The coat hung by the door. She wore it most mornings now. Blue button catching light. He'd offered to replace it with a matching brown one. She'd said no. Said she liked the reminder. That shame transformed was stronger than shame buried. He understood that now. Evening. Porch, 2 chairs, both filled. Coffee going cold. Checking the eastern horizon together. Habit now. Ritual. Running Bear rode up the path. Weekly visit, regular as weather. He dismounted, accepted coffee, sat on the porch rail. "Town's talking," he said. "Let them," Silas answered. "No, good talk. Mrs. Dale's organizing donations. For Anna's school." Anna looked up, surprised. "Really?" Some hearts change slow, but they change. He looked at Silas. "You saved her, that day on the platform." Anna set down her cup. "No." Both men looked at her. "He didn't save me when he covered me," she said quietly. "He saved me when he stayed." The truth of it settled like dust after wind. Running Bear nodded, touched 2 fingers to his chest. "Pia Tammin." He rode away into twilight. Silas and Anna remained. 2 chairs occupied, horizon endless, coat draped across her shoulders. No words needed. Somewhere in town, the church bell rang evening prayer. She didn't flinch, just pulled the coat tighter. He refilled her coffee. She smiled. They sat, together, breathing. The storm had passed. What remained was this: small rituals, quiet company, 2 people who'd fallen and risen in silence. Not saved, just staying, and that was enough.